All right. Hey, welcome, guys. I'm here with my friend Ryan Gottfredson. We go back little ways. We had an opportunity to do some stuff together with some of the other groups I was working with, and you can see him behind him. But I want to talk to you guys about a couple of his books, and specifically, the first book I read of his was Success Mindsets, and that's where I thought it'd be a lot of value getting him on here with you guys just to do some talking. So, Ryan, I guess just to start off, if you don't mind just giving a bit of an introduction to yourself, and then we can kind of get into things.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, wherever you're at, it's great to be in front of you, and I appreciate this opportunity, Jeff. So I'm in Southern California. I'm a professor at Cal State Fullerton, where I teach leadership classes. I do research on leadership, and then I apply that research out into the business world through the consulting that I do and the books that I write. So I work with organizations all over the world to help them develop their leaders. It's a ton of fun. I've learned a lot, and I just love being able to kind of share some of the things that I've learned with others. And maybe let me start with just a nugget that I've learned here. And it's really something that I'm passionate about, which is about just in general becoming better. And the key word there is becoming. How do we become better? And what I've discovered is most people think they know how to become better, but most people actually don't know how to become better. So both of my books, and even I'm working on my next book, which dives into this, are diving into concepts that are focused on truly becoming better. So there's two different ways that we could try to become better. One way is what's called horizontal development, which is adding knowledge and skills to what we have. It's kind of like downloading an app onto an iPad. So that's great because that new app broadens our functionality. But there's another form of development that's called vertical development. And that is not about adding an app onto our iPad. It's about upgrading our own internal operating system so that we rewire and upgrade our bodies to become more wired to create value in our world as opposed to operate in self-protective ways. And just most people aren't familiar with vertical development, what it is and the power that it can have if we can harness it for our personal development.
That's awesome. Now, and you had mentioned to me about your third book, and I didn't know that's what it was on. And that's one of the things I love that you hit on in your previous books. And having a book that's more dedicated to that, I think that's going to be a lot of value for these guys. So that's awesome. Appreciate that. So
Yeah.
there's a few things I want to do. And before we started, I was telling Ryan a little bit about what we're doing and where I think he could be valuable. And I'm going to share with you guys a lot of things. I'm going to share the links to his books because I obviously highly recommend them and suggest you guys all get them. I'm going to also share some links to some other videos of a podcast. I think you've been on a couple of my podcasts, Ryan, I think talking about
Yeah.
both books. But I use a lot of that stuff in the Confident Athlete program. We've got a whole module that's just my interviews with Ryan that has been so valuable. But, with what we're doing, whether we're talking about what we're doing specifically in doTERRA right now or any business that you guys are involved in, these are valuable resources and things to help you. One of the most impactful things. So I was introduced to Ryan when I really first started to study mindset. And that's when I got his book, got introduced, and probably my biggest aha was when I went through your mindset assessment and realized that, okay, mindset's a lot more than what I realized. I thought it was a big thing when I realized, okay, there's growth mindset, fixed mindset. But then I went through your assessment and learned a lot more about myself. You want to just share a little bit about what that assessment is?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I've discovered through some of my academic research is that mindsets have been studied for the last 40 years across a variety of disciplines. So management, marketing, psychology, and education. And in each of these domains, they're studying kind of different types of mindsets. And what my book Success Mindsets did is it brought these different mindset sets together and I put them together into one framework. So I think that the book Success Mindsets is probably the most comprehensive book or material on mindsets that's out there because I don't know of anybody else who's focusing on more than just one set of mindsets. So in this book, we've got 4 different sets of mindsets. that we've got 40 years of research backing on. They are fixed and growth, closed and open, prevention and promotion, and inward and outward. And all four of these mindset sets represent continuums. And these continuums range from us being wired for self-protection to being wired for value creation. And we fall somewhere along this range or this continuum for all four sets of these mindsets. Now, I've had over 50,000 people take my mindset assessment, and what I've found is that only 2.5% of people are in the top quartile for all four sets of mindsets. So what does that mean for us? Well, that means one thing is almost all of us have some wiring for self-protection. And that's normal, that's natural, that's a part of life. I mean, we go through crap in our life that causes our bodies to have some wiring for self-protection. And that wiring for self-protection serves us in some ways in that it keeps us safe, but it holds us back in other ways, such as how we could better create value for the world around us. So when I work with sales reps, for example, a lot of sales reps have certain fears, right? Like the fear of being rejected. Well, that's natural. And when we have that fear, it causes us to move away from situations where we might get rejected. And that's great in the short term because it helps us feel better. It's a self-protective strategy to avoid failure or to avoid rejection. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the wiring that's most optimal for us to have, right? If we actually want to create value in the world around us, if we've got a product that we know that can benefit the lives of others, we've got to change our wiring to not have that fear of rejection. We've got to upgrade ourselves, and we've got to be able to have a wider window of tolerance for rejection. The reality is rejection is going to come, and rejection can be seen not as something that's uncomfortable, but as something that could help us to get better. And if we can flip kind of the script in our mind in these little ways, it's going to make all the difference in the world.
I think one of the things too is often when we think about these things, one, you've got to become aware of them. What are these different mindsets? We picture ourselves at a certain part on that continuum. And that's what I think is so powerful about your assessment is that's when I said earlier that I learned a lot about myself. It's because I took that assessment and realized where I was on that spectrum. But also with the report that's kicked out with it, the explanation of exactly where I am. So I think that's really valuable in exactly what we're doing. One, understanding ourselves, but two, as we look at ourselves as we're building this business, we've got to be great leaders. Two, we are in sales. Whether you're one of the people that's out there focused on selling the product or you're selling the business opportunity to someone else, there's a lot of rejection. And so what does that mean to you? So I think exactly what you were talking about, there's a lot of value in that. Any thoughts or anything that you think would be helpful in our team growing and being able to, slide into those better mindsets is really appreciated.
Yeah, well, so one is what we're doing is hopefully this conversation leads to us reshaping our strategy for how we become better. Right? So if we've got kind of two sides of ourselves, I kind of alluded to this earlier. We've got a doing side, that's our talent, knowledge, skills, and abilities. We've got our being side. This is the degree to which we're wired for value creation as opposed to self-protection. And just by having this conversation, we're kind of flipping the script and saying, let's move away from the doing side stuff. Not that that's not important and you might need it, but what we're flipping the script and when we start to talk about mindsets is what we're saying and inviting is let's consider our being side. So just right away, we're re-strategizing how we're thinking about getting better. Now, if we're looking at our being side, what we've now done is we've put some labels to things, your mindsets that you may have not have had labels for before. And Jeff will give you access to my mindset assessment. And what that's going to do, this combination of putting labels on our mindsets and assessing our mindsets, is going to help us to get a sense of what is my altitude along my being side. And when we can awaken to our altitude along our being side, well, it's not going to be perfect. I mean, to let the cat out of the bag, we're never done vertically developing. I mean, it's a lifelong journey. So we can always elevate along our being. So no matter where you're at, wherever we find that we are, we're also going to get a sense of what's a higher elevation. And so when we know where we're at and we know what a higher elevation is or what it looks like or feels like, then we're going to have clarity about how we step into that. And that's where my book and a wide variety of resources on my website and things like that can be really beneficial to say, okay, I'm here. I want to get here. How do I close that gap? How do I level myself up? And then we can give you the tools and strategies to do that, at least beyond this conversation.
Right.
But I
And
will
yeah,
say,
that's something
as
else.
I say that, is what I think, here's one strategy that I think that you can do is I think you can get a variety of resources. I'll give them to Jeff if he doesn't already have them. But I could give you books, articles, videos, journaling exercises, discussion questions, etc. A whole bunch of material. And what I recommend is if you're ever meeting as a team, take 15, 20 minutes and talk about a piece about mindsets. Maybe you read an article in advance of the meeting and then talk about it. Maybe it's a video you watch before the meeting and talk about it, or you just simply have a discussion question. And here's the reason why this is so powerful, is because what we've learned about shifting our mindsets is it's not about big, great, grand efforts. It's about small, little, repeated interventions over time. Like, it's kind of like if we want to build our muscles. I'm not going to have huge muscles by going to the gym once. I'm going to have huge muscles by going to the gym again and again and again and again. And that's the same thing we've got to do with our mindsets. But the lift, right? When I go to the gym and I start to lift weights, like that's really strenuous. Like it's not super strenuous to work on our mindsets. We've got to watch a video. We've got to activate those positive mindset neural connections, those value mindset neural connections. And that occurs through these kind of discussions and activities. So if you have the chance to get together, whenever you get together in a group, I think, and of course I'm biased, you should have insert the mindset minute or whatever you want to call it to be able to help activate those more value creating mindset neural connections.
And I really like that too, because one of the things, and I'm going to share all these links with you guys, but on his website, there's so much value, but also in your newsletter, I want you guys to get on his mailing list because he's always sharing so much of this that's so valuable. And as you were saying that, I was just reflecting. We worked with a group where we put them through the mindset assessment, then we did some evaluation with them, and you had your suggestions. Okay, here's the videos or the articles, whatever, to help you shift that mindset. And so that's what I want you guys to realize is these resources to help you grow are right there. He's put so many of these great resources together. So I will make sure to share all those with you. So that's awesome. I'm sure you could talk about this for hours and hours, but I wanted just to kind of hit on a few of these things and make sure to give the opportunity to introduce you to this group. For one, I want them to be able to read your books, look at your resources and stuff, because I think it's really valuable in what we're doing and how you can grow personally. So
Yeah.
any other things that you want to share with the group, Ryan?
Man, well, as we're talking about this, there's a few select people that are coming into my mind and that are memorable people that I've worked with, and I just consider myself so fortunate to be able to see the impact connecting with mindsets could have on people. So let me just tell a quick story about one of these individuals. So this individual actually he worked effectively in the construction industry in Utah, and I was working with this company, and they brought me in to do a series of workshops with the executive team. And the first three workshops were virtual. So all I saw of them is, they're from here up effectively. And for the first three sessions, the fourth session was in person, but for the first three sessions, there was a guy that was a part of this executive team. And I can tell he's a bigger dude, right? Just by what I could see from his shoulders up. But he's also got this big old beard and kind of this very stoic look to him. And for the first 3 workshops that I did, he didn't say a word. And he's just like flat lipped, like I don't even know like if he's paying attention. And so I go in person and I'm kind of wondering, where's this guy at with this stuff? Is he going to be a detractor as I deliver this workshop in person? Is kind of what I'm wondering. So I'm a little bit nervous about this. And I drive over there and I'm thinking about it and I get in and we get going and he's not there. And I'm kind of like, oh, phew, like I know I'm not going to have a detractor here. Not that that's ever an issue, but um, I'm about 10 minutes in and everybody's eyes go behind me. And I look back and there's the door behind me and here's this guy. I don't remember his name, but the guy was gigantic. He filled the door, like probably 6'7", 300 pounds, but it's not like 300 pounds and fat. It's 300 pounds, I'm going to pound you into submission uh, type build. So he comes in and like clearly he commands a presence and he quietly kind of goes and sits down and I continue on and he stays quiet. And so we get to a break and I walk up to him and I ask him, "Hey, how is this stuff sitting with you?" And he looks up at me and literally his eyes start to water and I'm like, "Oh my goodness. Like this is I would just the last thing I expected." And he said, "This stuff has changed my life." And I said, "Wow, that's awesome. Tell me more." And he says, "I have learned, I didn't realize it, but I've learned that I've had a closed mindset. And I now realize why I have had that closed mindset and how it's been benefiting me. But what I didn't realize was while my closed mindset was benefiting me, I didn't realize how negative an impact it was having on my wife and my children." And he says, "Every day I now ask myself, do I have a closed or an open mindset?" And he says, I'm a changed person because of that. He says, "You could even ask my wife, and she will tell you I'm a very different husband now than I was a month ago." And it's like that's the type of impact awakening to our mindsets can have. And I hopefully, as you're kind of listening to this, you sense that this isn't just like him doing better. This is him being better or becoming better. And that's, again, the power of focusing on this stuff. So I just appreciate you, Jeff, opening the door for people to dive into this if they haven't had the opportunity to do so already.
Yeah, no, that's awesome because really that's what we're trying to do is impact lives in our own lives, our families, those we work with. So that is incredible. And, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the assessment and doing it myself and the people that we've gone through and done it with and the conversations afterwards that it is, and a lot of times there's a real awakening that I remember you and I got on a call with one of the ladies and she was like, me and my husband, we argued about what my mindset was because I was like, this assessment is telling me it's this, but it's not. And he's like, yeah, it is. and, and so, yeah, I, like I said, I really encourage you guys. With this video, I'm going to include the link to the mindset assessment and really encourage you to take it. The books, the website, get on the mailing list, all those things. There's so much value. So Ryan, thank you. Really appreciate the time to do this again and just appreciate all you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to be a resource in any way. So don't hesitate to reach back out. That's great.